Welcome to episode number 87 of the Section 247 show. I am Michael Lipinski, joined as always by Michael Watkins. Michael, what is going on this beautiful, nice and cool June Tuesday evening?
It is a beautiful, cool June evening. I've been up since 1:42 because when it's this nice out, your windows are open and we have a bird's nest right next to our one of 3 trees on our front yard. And decided to start chirping at 1:42 a.m. I've been up ever since.
Speak for yourself. I have children with allergies, so the air conditioner has been on. And it is what it is. It's set at 72 degrees. I'm sure I'm going to love my bill when it shows up. But hey, doctor said, put it on. I said, okay.
Yeah, I was up so long at 5:30. I'm like, hey, might as well go play 9 holes of golf. So I play 9 holes of golf.
There you go. Let's get some particulars in here. As always, this show is presented by Sports Talk Philly, sportstalkphilly.com, on the Twitter at Sports Talk PHL. Sponsored by Michael's Glass Company, serving the Philadelphia tri-state area since 1978. 215-338-3293. Tell them the two Mike sent you. What do we have going on? How have you been?
Other than almost being up 24 hours, I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm in a lot of pain. I'm not giving everybody the bird, but I had a nice little injury yesterday. For those of you who follow me on my regular social media, you would have saw that I severed the tip of my finger, which in reality was just an eight stitch cut. But shout out to everyone at Cooper University Hospital in the emergency room. They were able to take care of it rather quickly. I think I waited longer for the actual medication to come down before I was leaving than I did for everything else.
How were you with getting the stitches? Did that hurt at all? Did they numb it?
Oh, they numbed it. And that was great because they numbed the whole hand. I couldn't feel anything.
Yeah, so when I got mine, they didn't do that for me.
Oh, yeah. He's like, look, I'm going to give you like 5 needles. I said, great, this is good. I couldn't feel a damn thing. And they're talking to me as it's going on. And they're like, do you feel that? I'm like, feel what? I can't even feel you holding my hand. Yeah. They're like, all right, we're good then.
So good for you, man.
I enjoyed it. When it started wearing off, it's been iffy. It's been iffy since then.
Now, do you have to put that in Vaseline? What do you have to put ointment on it? What are you doing?
Yeah. So I got to put ointment on it. I have to keep it covered 24 hours. My wife is the one that is putting the ointment on it. She actually has a saline solution to clean it out. It's that's not going to be fun. It hurt like hell yesterday taking the initial bandage off, and it's not pretty looking. It's really not. There's a piece of black skin that's going to fall off. It's nasty.
I remember that from my thumb.
But other than that, I'm okay.
Yeah. But I mean, so good thing you're not cool when you can't go swimming.
Yeah. Ashley chimes in with ointment. There's some kind of ointment.
It is a funny word. It is a funny word. I will say ointment is a funny word.
It is a funny word. Tell people, we have some people chiming in here. Tell people how they can follow us on the show tonight or interact.
So how do you interact with us? Good evening, everybody. Hello, Ashley. Hello, Nicole. They're putting their comments through right now on the Section 247 show feed on one of 4 platforms, either Facebook Live, it's YouTube, Sportscaster. I said I wouldn't say it. I said it, as well as YouTube, Twitter, Periscope. Oh man, sleep getting to me already. We want to see your comments. We want you to interact. The only way we can see that is on the Section 247 show feed. Please like it. Please share. Please tell friends. We want you to do that. But in order for you to comment that are about 25 seconds to 30 seconds behind, you have to be in that Section 247 show feed.
Yeah, absolutely. And we appreciate it. We're going to do a little bit of a rundown on the show tonight.
What plans are you ruining that Zach says?
I'm supposed to be golfing tomorrow, and now I'm not golfing.
Well, usually you have a really lame excuse. I will say that this is an excuse that isn't so lame unless you severed your own tip.
Tip of my finger.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah. We got to clarify. I severed the tip of my finger, and I did not do that on purpose to get out of golf.
You know, I mean, I play golf too. I didn't get an invite, and if I recall, I've invited Zach a couple times to play golf, which he said no to me. So there you go.
Don't worry, we're going to get you out there. We have a customer outing that is not occurring because I'm not golfing. Anyway, rundown of the show tonight, Michael. We're
Exactly
going to
right. It's just a tip.
Yeah, we're going to discuss the worst decisions in Philadelphia Eagles history. This can be anything, anything you want it to be. We're going to discuss that. We're going to discuss Brandon Brooks and his Achilles injury. He tore the other one. We're going to talk baseball. Again, this is 2 weeks in a row. As more keeps coming out with the owners and the nonsense, there's a lot going on there. From there, whatever happens, happens. We talk. Do you have a beer review this week? Did you try anything new?
I didn't try anything new. Drank a lot of tequila though.
What kind of tequila was it? Was it the rock kind?
No, I'm drinking Casamigos. You know what? I do have the Rockwood in there. I did have a glass of that, and it's good. I mean, but I like my Casamigos. If I can't have 1942, I like my Casamigos Reposado.
There you go. I'm not a tequila guy. It just doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't work for me. Let's get after it. We're going to pull this up. I'll pull up the Instagram here. But what in your mind is the worst decision in Philadelphia Eagles history?
Hiring Rich Kotite.
Interesting that you would say that. That was on my list of. I figured that would be there, but I didn't get a chance to go back and figure out who they were going to hire instead of him. So I took it off.
Well, when does John Gruden come into play? He was Kotite's offensive coordinator, right?
You know, I'm gonna have to look that up. I know that
he was the Ricky Waters offensive coordinator for what?
Yeah, he definitely was, and he was definitely there under Ray Rhodes. So I don't know that he was there under.
No, he wasn't. It comes later on. Gruden comes later on. Wasn't Kotite? Wasn't he the offense? Didn't he call the plays? There was no offensive coordinator, sort of like what we have going on now.
Yeah, he was the offensive coordinator under Buddy Ryan. So I'd have to imagine that he was calling his own plays. Well, remember the chart. There was the chart issue in Dallas that one time when they were going for the 2-point conversion, and he couldn't figure it out. So that would be my thought, that he was his own coordinator.
Man.
But so of all time, you're going to go. That's where you're going to go. You're going to go hiring of Richie the Cat.
I mean, you threw up that graphic there, and Reggie White probably, because that's when free agency really became free agency.
That's true.
I would probably say Reggie White would probably be number one, and then Rich Kotite would be number two.
So if I'm going to do 5, I'm going to give you my top 5. My 4 and my 5 kind of, hey, Carl Coffey, what's going on? I'm going to go with my 4 and my 5 combined, and they can flip-flop either way. And that is going to be the firing of LaShawn McCoy, those guys, by Chip Kelly. So you figure, which direction is that going to go? Who's the give and who's the take there? Who left? Nick Foles left. You lost LaShawn McCoy. You lost Deshaun Jackson, all because the chipper didn't want them. I guess Chip would be 5. They'd be 4. But that really, in my mind, set the franchise back. Ultimately, the Eagles won, but I think that set the franchise back a good 5-6 years.
It did. But the only thing is, after it set it back, they won a Super Bowl right after, 2 years after it.
Yeah, so, but you could have.
I don't know if you really can complain about that one.
Well, sure you can. I mean, it could have happened before that. It could have. They were on the cusp as Chip Kelly was hired, and he ruined the whole damn thing.
Well, I mean, but you obviously didn't need Deshaun Jackson or LaShawn McCoy to win a Super Bowl.
You could have had one 2 years sooner.
Possibly. I mean, look at the Super Bowl champions during that time. That was when the Patriots were at their height. Yeah, you might have had a year in there when the 49ers were doing it. Who else? Because they could have beat the Ravens in a Super Bowl with that offense. at that time. But Patriots, didn't the Patriots, that was a perfect season that the Giants interrupted?
Right. So yeah.
I mean, I don't know how the Eagles played against the Giants. I forget how they played against the Giants during that time period. If they split, if the Giants beat them twice, I don't remember. But I mean, there's a reason why it all works out. Yeah, he did set the team back a couple years. But even if you look at the Super Bowl roster, there weren't a lot of Chip Kelly guys. There were some, but there weren't a lot.
No, because they were smart enough. They, being Howie Roseman and Doug Peterson, were smart enough to come in and remove all of the guys that Chip Kelly brought in because they were worthless. How many Oregon Ducks can you bring in?
Yeah, Zach says about Seahawks and Giants would have been tough. The Giants' front line, defensive line, was unbelievable during that time period when they won those 2 Super Bowls from New England. Seattle, it always seems that Philadelphia has some sort of mental block when playing against Seattle for the past, 10 years, even 20 years. So, you might be right about that one, Zach, with the Seahawks.
Yeah, I mean, and that they were playing at the top of their game there with the Legion of Boom. But I think it's worth discussion that's on there. I mean, Rich Kotite, it was bad. It was definitely very bad. But it also led to some other better things. My number three is letting Brian Dawkins walk. And, it was one of the things at the time. It angered me at the time. It angered me even more when they decided not to go ahead and draft his replacement. They drafted Macho Harris as his replacement. I mean, ridiculous when you think about that. That you thought Brian Dawkins was washed up and you were going to bring in Macho Harris, a 155-pound soaking wet safety. I mean, it was a joke. And Dawkins went on to go to at least one other Pro Bowl. I think it might have been 2, and had a pretty successful career for that short time in Denver. It should have been done in Midnight Green. There's no excuse for it not to be.
He didn't get to that Super Bowl where they played outdoors in New York and they got rolled, right?
He might have been on the team. He
wasn't on the field though.
He was definitely not on the field.
Yeah. Yeah. So the only time he ever got to Super Bowl was when he played against the Patriots, and then when he was a coach against the Patriots, or a consultant. Whatever he was.
Oh yeah, he was an assistant. Yeah. Now, where does Brian Dawkins getting unceremoniously tossed?
He would be my number 3 as well. I mean, as much as he is one of my favorite all-time sports athletes, in my mind, but it's still number 3 when you look at the other 2 that are preceding it there.
Well, and this is just a graphic. I mean, this doesn't have to do with anything. My number 2 is Reggie White leaving. And the biggest sham of the whole thing is that Norman Brayman was a cheap son of a bitch and decided not to even offer Reggie White a contract.
Yeah.
And how do you do that?
I mean, I agree, with he didn't offer him anything, whereas Brian Dawkins, It seems like there was some miscommunication there because he was supposed, they went back and said, this is the offer, and the Eagles just chose to ignore it, because the Eagles said, go get an offer and let us know what you have. Whereas this was just nothing at all, because Norman Brayman used to make you pay for your socks.
He did. I mean, looking back on that was a team that was a quarterback away from really winning a Super Bowl. It was probably the 91 team would have been the year when Bryce Bob took out Randall's knee. Mm-hmm. You obviously have to you factor in a couple of the other things. You factor in Jerome Brown dying, but
I think if we go back to 90, because that was Randall, that was like his coming out party. I mean, he had an unbelievable season. The problem is there was no discipline on the offensive side of the ball. It was very much, it was the Wild Wild West. There was no game plan ever, and Randall never studied anything because he was never, held accountable for it. It was basically let Randall do what Randall's going to do. And that was the end of it. I think there was a little more structure. It might have turned out different. That defense was a well-oiled machine. They policed each other. This offense, it was very, all over the place because there was no structure. There was no leader to say, this is what you need to do to get ready. Whereas on the defensive side, There was Reggie, there was Seth, there was Clyde, there was Wes, and Eric Allen. They all policed each other, and they were all leaders of that team, really.
Yeah, you're right. But at the same time, you could have had a team of Andy Harmon, William Fuller, Reggie White, all coming of age at the same time. You probably don't have a Mike Mamula coming in now because, as we discussed previously, Mike Mamula was brought in to replace Reggie White. All you had to do was give Reggie White a contract. He was the second greatest, arguably one of the top 2 defensive players of all time. And it was known at that point. Someone had asked recently, I don't know if it was on NFL Network Radio or I saw it on Twitter, which Reggie was better, Eagles Reggie or Packers Reggie? Packers Reggie won the Super Bowl, but people forget what Eagles Reggie was able to do and how he single-handedly changed the game. And you just let that walk. That was the beginning of the end for the Eagles of that time.
Yeah, you talk about, Reggie changing the game as an Eagle. Any highlight that you see, you always see Reggie, performance-wise as an Eagle. All the highlights as an Eagle. The only real Green Bay, highlight you see is him running down the field with
winning the Super
Lombardi
Bowl
Trophy in his hand, which, that sort of takes precedence of them all. But the stories you hear when quarterbacks like Phil Simms, how when you would get sacked by Reggie White, how you just felt all the air leaving your body because that's how strong he was. That was when he was with the Eagles. It was more of a supporting cast in Green Bay where he didn't have to be the man.
Yeah, to me, it was just I remember going to the Reggie rally. I can't believe that when looking back on it now, all these years later, that they just let him go. It still boggles my mind that there wasn't even a contract offer. Disgraceful is the best way to describe it. My number one, which you're not going to, which you can kind of see on here, it's alluded to a little bit. You have Mike Mamula there in that beautiful silver pants, white jersey, Kelly green numeral, Kelly green helmet, and then right next to him you have DeMarco Murray in midnight green. My number one worst decision in Philadelphia Eagles history was when Jeff Lurie decided to listen to his now ex-wife and change from the beautiful Kelly green to midnight green. And look, and I know they won a Super Bowl in midnight green, and that goes a long way with a lot of people. But God damn it, man, look how classic Mike Mamula looks on that picture. He looks like $1 million.
Yeah, and just the fact that you've only brought back the Kelly green the one time, and it really wasn't even that uniform.
No, it was a 60 straight up the 60 uniform with the white band.
What's really funny to me is, and you've been through this, when you break up with somebody, you usually go the opposite direction. So you would think after he got divorced, he would have went the opposite, maybe done something else. No, he kept it, and I know there's league rules where you have to keep it for a certain amount of years and whatever, but it's always stayed. I mean, he's been divorced. He's remarried.
Yeah, he is remarried. And he has said, Jeff Lurie has said that he's a proponent of getting rid of this one shell rule, which apparently is not going to occur for this year, obviously, a 2021 season, but maybe 21-22 season. And if that's the case, he's going to bring back Kelly green as an alternate. I say to you, Mr. Lurie, because I know you watch this and I know you listen to it on Podomatic, section 247 pod.podomatic.com. Please, you won the Super Bowl. You got your Super Bowl in midnight green. Give us little people what we're really, really looking for. You'll make a lot of money on new uniforms and new jerseys.
Yeah. Yeah. Going back, Zach says they never thought free agency would work. Going back to the whole Reggie White thing, I just remember, the plan B, which was so confusing when it came to signing players before they had the bona fide free agency signing period. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know how plan B worked for so long.
They never did think it was going to work. And the ultimate irony is that it worked in baseball. It worked in another sport. So why did they think, because they're the NFL, it was going to be different is my impression of it. Let's get in here. A couple of the people. Coom commented on here that the Alshon Jeffrey contract extension, making it impossible to trade him. That's an interesting one because, worst decision of all time. I don't know about that.
Up to
Again,
the Super Bowl. I mean, let's face it, that when he got that contract, he basically had 2 rotator cuff tears and performed at a very high level. The downside with Alshon Jeffrey is he's disinterested, you know?
yeah, he definitely is disinterested, and that's a problem in its own right. Worst decision of the last, what, I guess 3-4 years at this point. Yeah, I would agree with that. Dave Washik chimed in on Facebook, and he was going back and forth with a lot of different stuff. Brian Dawkins, Reggie White. There's a couple other things on here. Let's discuss it. T.O. as an Eagle. I say one of the worst decisions of all time was not T.O. being the Eagle, but it was 2005 not giving T.O. what he earned and what he deserved.
I'm a huge believer in you sign something, because you feel that's what you agree to it. When you sign it, you should play it. You should play it out. I mean, but there are ways. You've seen the ways where they've taken care of players where they'll maybe, up the bonus to next year, which gives more cap room to sign other players. There was ways to make it work. They just didn't want to make it work. They didn't want to do it for him because Donovan didn't want him around anymore. And Donovan was that franchise at the time. And you know how I feel about him.
Yeah. I look back on that, and I think that's why a lot of people were Donovan backers. Look, I was a number 5 guy. I solely supported 5. But you look back on it, hindsight's 2020. Like, what were you thinking there? You have an opportunity to win one that you probably gets taken from you illegally by the Patriots. But you have an opportunity, if you're playing as a team, as a unit, to go back and win it the next year.
Right, same squad.
And maybe that team stays together and you're still performing in 08 when you go up against that Cardinals team. And you have another opportunity there. The McNabb shut that window when he didn't have to. Now, T.O.'s not innocent by any means, but he certainly, that was one of the worst decisions, was letting him walk away.
Yeah, 2 wrongs don't make it right here. I mean, McNabb was wrong because McNabb, it was just pure ego. He didn't need T.O. to be successful, because he was successful with crappy receivers prior to that and was after T.O. left too. But look how successful you were when T.O. was there. That was probably, outside of the Super Bowl season, the most fun to watch Eagles games, because you just, I can remember more of those games during that season than I can during the Super Bowl season because of how much fun they were. The Dallas Monday night game, even when he got hurt and they were in Giants Stadium and they began chanting the T.O. 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 song. Preseason, the very first time he was in an Eagles uniform. Like, look at all the stuff that I just mentioned right there off the top of my head, and how much that could have been.
I remember where I was when that play occurred. Eagles preseason game. I was at the high and inside pub on the 300 level of Citizens Bank Park. Eagles Ravens, first play from scrimmage, play action pass. McNabb hits T.O. on a bomb. Everyone was packed in this bar to see that, a preseason football game during a Phillies game that was, they were still kind of in it at that point in 04, first year of the ballpark. And man, it could have been, it would have been great.
And that was something that you knew was going to happen. You knew that play was coming. It was just like the biggest untold secret whatsoever. They were going deep the first play to see how it was.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Some of the other ones here, and I guess this goes back to Chip, DeMarco Murray.
Mm-hmm. You talked about that. Yeah, that whole squad.
Sam Bradford. I mean, what? I'll never forget being on 476 the day that trade was made, and listening to Tony Bruno and Harry Mays. Everyone was excited. Oh my God, the Eagles just made this trade, Sam Bradford, and it's looking like they get a first-round pick as well. And then more and more comes out on it, and it's like, no. They just traded this for that, and it makes no sense. Again, I think that Chip Kelly set the Eagles back many years. I guess it doesn't matter. They ended up winning a Super Bowl.
Chip Kelly was a flashy trend. His type of coaching was a flashy trend in college, just like Nick Saban, how he came and coached, the the Dolphins and the Redskins, right? Was the Redskins too for him? Was that Nick Saban?
It was definitely the Dolphins. No, Redskins
Definitely,
was
no. Who was the Florida coach that coached for
Steve
the
Spurrier.
Redskins? That's who. Yeah, that's who I'm thinking. Yeah. Very much trendy offenses, the way they would run them. And then they would last a couple of years and they'd run their asses back to college where they belong. You know, that's what happens.
Anything else stick out to you as worst decisions of all time?
No, I think that covers a lot of them. Or I guess you could say letting go of Keith Byers and Keith Jackson. They both went to Miami.
That was right after Reggie, right?
left.
So that was, I don't think it was the same year. I think it was
the next year
season. That was that whole Norman Brayman, I'm trying to do more with less kind of thing. And it didn't work. It obviously didn't work. Kind of the same thing. You got to give Randall Cunningham his just deserved weapons, and they wouldn't do it. Real quick for you, Sports Radio 94 WIP is doing this thing. They're calling it the GOAT of Broad Street. It's some list that they have compiled, and it's the greatest players ever to play in Philadelphia. Randall Cunningham came in, I think, like number 12. In my mind, Randall was great. Randall was an awesome quarterback, fun to watch. But looking at it, he peaked. I guess he peaked maybe early on as an Eagle, but he really peaked when he was in Minnesota. Like that was the complete quarterback that people were expecting to see. Where would Randall rank on your great list of greatest Philadelphia athletes? And you're a Randall.
Tell me, throwing the Randy Moss and Chris Carter.
Well,
it didn't help your career.
He had Chris Carter.
Yeah, for one season.
He had, not that Fred Barnett and those guys and Calvin Williams were those two, but
they're good receivers, but they're not Randy Moss and they're not Chris Carter. Where do I rank Randall? Is that where you're going with the question?
Yeah, where would you rank Randall?
I would rank him a little higher than 12, not much higher because of the postseason, and unfortunately Randall too, for as exciting of a player he was, and like you said, I was a Randall guy. The injuries kind of sucked too. I mean, you had 2 out of 3 seasons were just gone because of injury, and that hurt his career. His career was scrambling. And when you have injuries to your legs, that's going to hurt your overall play. So, I'd put him in the top 10. It would somewhere between 8 to 10 if I really had to think about it. Yeah. Yeah. But, and he would be higher if he had better, had a better postseason resume.
Okay, fair enough. I probably would have him out of my top 20, but that's just me.
You put him that far down, huh?
Yeah, I put him that far down. Like I think there's guys that you can put ahead of him. Look, Nick Foles might have to go in front of him when you're thinking.
Well, he won a Super Bowl,
right?
And he's got a long enough tenure too.
Right.
The thing is with Randall is during that era of football, he changed the quarterback position. And so that's what he was a pioneer for what he did. It was a throwback to Franz Harkin. Nobody really saw a scrambling quarterback since then. I mean, Elway did it a little bit, not as much as Randall did it, not as much as Franz Harkin did it. So that's why, it's 8 to 10 in that range because of what he did for the position, the excitement level that he brought, and they did have pretty successful seasons, just not in the postseason.
Elway did it differently too. Elway was different type of play.
He did it when the game was on the line and he had to take the ball into his own hands, which great. That was very good.
Speaking of injuries and injuries to the legs, news broke on Monday evening that Brandon Brooks tore his other Achilles and is most likely done for all of the 2021 season. So it begs the question now, where do you go as a replacement? One guy stands out immediately, and that's who everybody has been clamoring for, and that's Jason Peters. We've discussed it at length on this show that maybe it's an option to put Jason Peters in and have him go to guard. I don't know, Michael. I mean, at this point, why is Jason Peters not signed a contract?
Because he wants to play for the Eagles.
Does he though?
Yeah, he wants to play for the Eagles. Listen, I was told with the comments, you said that was the biggest mistake ever to try to sign him as a guard. And I said, look, explain his role. He'll get it. You need him as a guard. It's good depth. Now what's up? Now it's a great idea.
I don't know, because now
it was a great idea months ago.
So you're flip-flopping him, right? You're going to flip-flop him to the other side of the line. You're going to move him inside.
Play both if need to be. That's the thing. You're not asking him to play the amount of snaps that Brandon. I mean, you might need him.
Well, you need him to. If you're bringing him in,
but guard is a totally different way of playing. I think he can handle that better than being a tackle and having to, get false start penalties all the time. I think guard suits him great for the age he is and where he is in his career. Look, he's a Hall of Fame tackle.
Sure, he is. And I just look at it. There's guys that I don't know.
Zach says you have to throw him $2 million. You got to throw him a little bit more than that, because you have to give him a contract based on past merit and what he's done for the team. You're also getting a leader in the locker room. You're going to get a leader in the locker room that's sacrificing to come back and play in another position that wasn't his natural position his whole career.
Yeah, you see, I think that's bullshit. You don't have to pay for him on past merit. You're gonna pay for a guy that hasn't made it through a full season in 3 years.
Well, $2 million is just not enough. You're gonna have to pay him a little bit more. He was making 8 or 9.
Right, but he's not. That's a cornerstone tackle number. You're asking him to go.
And you also want him to be your opening day starting guard.
Okay.
So you're gonna have $2 million is not going to do it.
Well, at this point, it doesn't seem like anybody is looking to sign him at any position. So, I mean, is it time for him to take what he can get at this point?
Only he knows that. Only he knows the answer to that question. I think he's holding out because he wants to play for the Eagles.
Well, now is the time, and I mean, I guess obviously it's going to leverage him. I can't see a scenario where if they're having a conversation, it's fully in the ball's fully in the Eagles' court. I had a list here of free agent guards that I was going to pull up, but I can't find it now because I lost it on my phone.
I think he signs between $3.5 to $4 million.
You think really?
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to give him a 1-year deal? You're going to give him a 2-year deal?
I'm going to give him a 1-year deal, $3.5, $4 million. And that's not. I'm not just saying that's what the Eagles are going to do. I'm saying that's when he signs. If he signs with a team, it's going to be $3.5, $4 million 1-year deal, and it's going to be a lot of incentive based because of the past 2 seasons.
Look, Reuben Frank said this is the one that makes the most sense. It's the move to make. He can obviously just come in and play. In my mind, I don't know. I think it's a risky decision to make at this point. And if you asked me 4 months ago, I was probably a little bit more for it. Yeah, I see the trend here. And maybe it's weird. It's a weird offseason. Maybe that's why he hasn't signed. But to me, a guy like Jason Peters should have been signed by now, unless he is just telling people, no, look, I'm working on a deal to go back to Philadelphia.
I mean, yeah, it is a weird offseason. He can't go and work out for any teams so they could see it in front of him. The only thing they're seeing is the video that we're all seeing of him working out. So it makes it a little bit harder. I think when he does sign with any team, it's going to be when it's in training camp, when he can physically go to the facility and work out in front of a general manager or coach. Let's face it, he's earned that right too. I mean, he's been in the league long enough. Does he really have to do training camp? I mean, what's it? Once you get to the age of 32 in the NFL, you just sit there anyway?
I don't think many of those guys that are up there in age should have to go through that disastrous kind of event.
And is it even really a disaster anymore with the collective bargaining agreement?
Well, it's not, and especially now because where you can't touch anybody, it's going to be like flag football or something. I don't know. Moving on, let's move back to this. For 2 weeks in a row, we're going to be talking a little bit of baseball, Michael. I don't know who to blame. Last week I was blaming the owners. I was blaming the players. Now the players have tried to counter with the owners, and the owners have basically said, no, we don't want it. We're just going to make a mandated season. Rob Manfred came out and said, we're going to have a mandated season when there's going to be baseball in 2020. And now the players called his bluff. They said, okay, you tell us when to show up and where to show up. We're not negotiating with you anymore. Who do you blame this week for this?
So for the record, I blame the players last week. You didn't really blame anybody. You kind of saw it for both sides. Owners are greedy, players are greedy type of deal. I don't understand this whole move right here. The Players Association rejected the owner's offer. The commissioner says we're going to have a baseball season. The players then go, okay, tell us when and where to show up. Then you just reject something? I don't get what's going on here. I'm totally lost.
So the back and forth was negotiation over beyond what the players and the owners negotiated in March. March was a prorated salary for however many games were played. Basically what was going on, and Jody McDonald laid this out really, really well, is that you have the owners who are looking to say, hey, yeah, we'll give you a 100-game season, but you have to play at 70% of your pay. And the players are saying, no, we'll play 50 at 100% of our pay. You're not going to essentially mathematically get 20 free games out of us. We understand this everything that's going on, and there's nobody there. To me, what's more maddening at this point is the players have said, okay, we're ready to go. Tell us when to report. And ownership now is like, well, we're 100% going to have a season, to now maybe we don't.
So when they say, okay, tell us when to report, what's the status then? They just going to get paid for every game they play?
They're going to get paid according to their March negotiation, which I believe was 100%, a prorated 100% of every game they play. So the argument, the belief is that now the owners are going to drag their feet until the owners only want 50 games. The players want more. Players want more money in their pocket. Owners don't want to lose as much money. So now the belief is the owners are going to drag their feet for the next 2-3 weeks to the point where it says, you know what? Okay, well, let's do it. Let's play now. But it's only going to be 50 games.
This makes no sense whatsoever. So they've reverted back to the original contract or agreement that they had in March. They went through all this stuff the past 3 months for no reason whatsoever.
All the negotiations.
This is why this is the worst sport right now out there.
Yeah, all the negotiations were to change the March agreement to benefit everybody. And you had one side trying to outdo the other, and they both come off looking awful. I mean, just awful. But
they do.
Does ownership look worse now?
It looks worse now because the players. It's easy for the players to say, "Okay, tell us when to report." Yeah, you don't only have to worry about that. The owners have to get the organization together and make sure the staff is ready and can all go in the same spot on a certain date. So it's easy to say, yeah, it's like me telling you, like, I'm ready, pick me up whenever. Meanwhile, you still have to gas up your car, get it ready, and drive to my house. It takes a little more planning for that.
But shouldn't they have been planning for this anyway? There had to be discussions of, this is the date we're looking at. Let's move forward with
it. Yeah, there should have been, just like the NHL and the NBA have had it all the time. And I saw something about how, Rob Manfred and Gary Bettman are just the same person. No, Gary Bettman has basically a plan in place for the past 3 weeks now that's coming to fruition. They're going to be back by July 10th, probably playing games by July 24th.
And the players
so I don't think how they're the same.
And the hockey
Bettman
nationally was involved. The players were involved. There was a whole player council.
Bob has said this is the most communication of both the organization, the owners, and the players' organization have been on the same page in so long, which is good because they have a collective bargaining coming up soon too.
Well, it shows me that you have an organization, a group in hockey, National Hockey League, and the Players Association, who wants to get things done and wants to take care of business. I also think they're
at the risk of losing a lot of money too if they don't play. So and not just the owners but the players too, because we've talked about before, they have that whole escrow that comes out of their contracts. So if they don't play, then they force more money being taken out of their contracts for years to come, and the owners, well, they just lose money.
I also think that hockey and basketball to some extent are looking at this, not forcing their hand at playing, but they have a golden opportunity here to take advantage of the situation. Summer is baseball time. they can completely flip the script now. And in theory, moving forward, if they wanted to, this could change how seasons look. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised. We talked about it with the NBA, where the NBA starts a little bit later, maybe right around Christmas time, and runs through the summer. Well, now if you're Major League Baseball in the summer of 2021, where normally from what beginning of middle of June, right around now until Labor Day, it's just you're the only show. If you're going to have basketball and potentially hockey, that makes for an interesting development moving forward.
Yeah, friend of the show Ryan Rothstein said, I think it was last week, said, "Go ahead, baseball, keep playing your games of not playing at all. Once the NBA comes back, you're going to be a distant memory anyway in your own sport time."
They are, and I mean, look, I'm not going to say the MLS is going to take over from MLB, but they're going to be putting a product back on the field. Baseball, the more and more you keep doing this, you lost a whole group of fans in 1994, 1995. The only reason you brought them back was because everyone was juiced out of their mind hitting dingers, in 1998, which we're going to get to in a second.
I watched that Sunday night.
I watched some of it, so I want to talk about that. And you brought the fan base back, but you're going to lose a whole generation of fans here. I mean, kids aren't going to care.
No, the kids aren't going to care because kids have such a shorter attention span right now anyway. I mean, baseball is because kids don't want to, they think it's boring.
Right. Let's discuss the ESPN 30 for 30 on Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa. I watched some of it. I want to get your thoughts on the program, and I just going to kind of reminisce on that whole summer, because there was things that I completely forgot about.
There was nothing new from it. I mean, it's just like the Last Dance. It was nothing you didn't know already. There was no like untold story or anything like that. They really made it sound. They really, structured it much like the HBO movie 61, where it was, Mickey Mantle was the one that was the fun-loving guy that everyone loved, and Roger Maris was the stressful guy, just like how Mark McGwire was when Sammy Sosa was running around dancing, blowing kisses to the camera. They really made that structured just like that almost.
Yeah, he was definitely, I don't want to call him the villain of that time. Even thinking back to it then, there was a lot of pressure on Mark McGwire to be more outgoing. I remember there was a hug with him and Sammy Sosa. I don't think it was the All-Star game. I think it was when the Cubs were playing the Cardinals at one point, and it just came off as, I don't know, weird.
Well, did you hear in the beginning, Mark McGwire knew nothing about Sammy Sosa at all until he hit those, 30 home runs in June, and that's when he started paying attention to who Sammy Sosa was. So leading up to that, when he was with the Texas Rangers, or even the beginning with the Cubs, because he did have a couple good seasons leading up to that 66 home run season, Mark McGwire knew nothing about him.
It doesn't surprise me one bit. I mean, I think baseball players back then, at least, were a lot like that. And it's ironic too, because when you look at McGwire, didn't McGwire hit 59 for Oakland his rookie year?
49.
49. Okay, so
but I think he hit 58 combined in 97, both for Oakland and St. Louis.
Right. You brought up friend of the show Ryan Rothstein, and he had a tweet. I think it was yesterday, and I don't know if they were talking about it he's a producer for Tony Bruno's show on Sirius XM, so I don't know if they were talking about it. I didn't listen because I was getting my finger all jacked up. Bring steroids back to baseball. Just let them go. Let them juice. Let them do it. Bring back the long ball. What's your take on it?
You don't have to bring steroids back, because there's so many good supplements out there technology wise and what they've done in medicine that you don't really need steroids. I mean, HGH is still, probably a competitive advantage.
That's true.
But steroids aren't really needed because of everything that you can buy in the stores now. Back in 97, 98, 99, steroids were needed because the science wasn't there yet. Andro just was breaking in, and nobody knew what Andro was. They knew it was legal at the time, but it turned out it was a very powerful steroid. Now there's just so much stuff that's just as powerful and just as equal as any steroid would be.
It was fun though. Where were you? Do you remember when McGwire hit the home run, where you were?
I was in the front yard of my house. The game was on in my living room, and my dad said he just did it, and it was such a shitty home run too.
It was a home run.
It was he said it in the whole documentary that it was he goes, you wish it was longer. He goes, what turns out is my shortest home run of the season.
I was on the
61st home run on his dad's 61st birthday.
See, that's cool.
That's pretty crazy.
It is. I was on the phone with my uncle when it happened, and it must have been some kind of delay because he's like, "Oh, he just did it." I'm like, "Did what?" And I watched it, and I remember watching it and thinking, like, "Man, Big Mac land. You have all these things up in the, upper deck at Old Busch Stadium where he's hitting these bombs. He's hitting bombs at the vet, and that's it. Like, man." That's definitely not the Hollywood story writing there. That was brutal, but that was so much fun. It was so much fun and so captivating.
It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. I mean, even in '94 with that strike, I still was a big fan of baseball in '95 and so on. What I think is, and you probably didn't see this part of it, and I'm going to ruin it for you, is that Sammy Sosa, since the day he left the organization in 2004, he has not been welcomed back.
Really? See, I didn't see the whole thing.
Welcome back. Basically, the whole corking of the bat in 2003, and then
I forgot about that. That's right.
He started getting annoyed at the media and the fans, where he would leave games early. Just became disinterested, as we said about Alshon, and just gave up on the city. And since then, the organization hasn't invited him back to anything. Meanwhile, McGwire. Oh, and still denies anything that he ever did anything wrong, where McGwire said, yeah, I've done it. And he came clean officially in January of this past year. But in 2010, he wrote a letter, stating what his career and how he came up and everything he did, because he wanted to still remain in baseball. I mean, he's been a hitting coach for the Cardinals, the Padres, he is now, and the Dodgers. So, I mean, he wanted a life in baseball, and it was Tony La Russa and I think Don Mattingly to help him get back on that path.
Well, Tony La Russa, that's a good guy to have in your back pocket there as an executive. Is this the only baseball we're going to be talking about this season? Is ESPN 30 for 30s?
Might be. Yeah, we talked about Docs and we talked about this one. The other interesting one was, before we go, was at the very end. Again, I'm going to ruin this for you. Last day of the season when he had 68 home runs and he didn't want to play, because he passed Sosa the night before, because Sosa had 66 and he hit 2 to get to 68, and he told La Russa he didn't want to play. And sort of like in the movie 61, where the coach goes, well, look, give me a look during the game and I'll take you out if you don't want to play anymore. 2 at-bats, 2 home runs, got the 70, and then La Russa goes, all right, you're done now, get out.
Hey, 70 home runs, never to be done again, right? Well, I don't count Barry Bonds, so that's why I say that. But, that's neither here nor there. Tell everybody where they can find us on social media. And I just hit my finger. That hurt like a mother.
I imagine it would. I'm kind of grimacing for you. You can find us on social media on Twitter at Section 247 Show, Facebook Section 247 Show, as well as YouTube Section 247 Show. What are we on Sportscaster? I'm not sure. Is that Section
Sportscaster? We are SEC 247 Show.
There you go. And any podcast platform, Podomatic, iTunes, are we still on Spotify?
We're still on Spotify. We're having a little bit of an issue with iHeartRadio for some reason. It won't up. It's not updating our newest episodes, but you can ask your smart speaker to play Section 247 Show on TuneIn Radio, and it will play for you.
Just make sure you tell a friend, subscribe, write a comment, say hi, do something.
Flip us the bird. I'll give it right back to you. We'll see you guys next week. We'll be talking more sports, maybe a little bit more entertainment, and certainly get off our lawn.